the music speak for itself, right? Because music is a universal language. There's no race, there's no color lines, there's nothing. Music is music. So that's what we realized when the guys had songs that were music that people love. They didn't know what race they were or anything. I'll let the music speak for itself. So there's so many talented artists out there, regardless of like what race they are. It's like today's world is anyone can make music, anybody, any race.
Welcome to Theoretically Speaking, hosted by Victoria Herrera and Brent Javier. Produced by Next Theory. From the Philippines to the world, this is an interview series with creative entrepreneurs, taste makers, and change agents. We dissect the journey they took from dream to reality, exchanging stories from the past, motivations in the present, to ideas for the future. Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Theoretically Speaking, where today we talk with someone I've known ever since I can remember. No, really, I was maybe 3 or 4 years old when I met him. He's someone who has heavily influenced my older siblings. From the days they were throwing house parties in the 90s in Long Beach, California, to the days where he was mentoring my older brother John in his music career in the 2000s. This guest is also someone I know who has always been super light, funny, and young at heart. And of course, he has made a global career doing what he loves and taking that joy around the world, one country at a time.
Our season finale guest is an international acclaimed DJ and an inside authority in the American music industry. He is a member of Far East Movement and gives us a walkthrough of his exciting career as an international music artist, with plenty of familiar tunes featuring the hottest names in the industry. For anyone who has ever had a dream to be heard or to share their song, this is a story you don't want to miss. Friends, please welcome the amazing DJ Virman.
What up, V?
What up, V? Wow, thank you. That's funny because I was only 7 years old when I met you, so we're only like 2 years apart. Wow.
Oh, word?
You guys are pretty much like courtesy cousins in the Filipino world.
Yeah, feels like it. I mean, your mom is pretty much my second mom, V. So it's like, you know, when I see her, I'm like, hi, Mom.
She feels the same way about you. Yeah. Whenever she hears your name and then she hears that you and John have been hanging out, like it gives her that happiness, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're all hanging out. It gives her that joy. And just to see how far you've grown, especially in your life and in your career, from hanging out with everyone in poly high school with my siblings to having that global career to now being a husband and father. We're all very proud of you to see how your career and how your life has grown. And I'm really honored and happy to have you here on our podcast, you being our season finale. Yes.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Yes. And, you know, you're always someone that I've wanted to people I know and to the people listening here in the Philippines and Southeast Asia and whoever's listening in the world. So to just get it started, we're going to go back in time. And I'd like you to kind of tell us a story of how it was growing up and how you got into music.
Wow. Okay. Looks like I'm going to start dating myself, but it's okay. But yeah, man, it started like, if you ever saw the movie Straight Outta Compton with Dr. Dre, NWA, literally it's exactly what Dr. Dre, his character, is exactly how it inspired me. When I was a kid growing up, I used to listen to this radio station called 1580 KDAY, which was the only radio station in LA at the time playing hip hop music. And Dr. Dre was a DJ at the time on there. They would sell mixtapes too as well. Like I would go to swap meet, it was called the Rhodium, and go with my friends and buy these mixtapes where it had Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and it's just them just freestyling. It's not even them having any music yet. This is like really early stages where they're just rapping over beats and Dr. Dre's just DJ. And that's what kind of inspired me in the beginning, like, wow, that's so cool. Like, I want to do something like that. It just inspired me just to hear that type of style of music. And especially with my dad, he used to collect records at the time, like 45-inch records. And he had this turntable that had an arm with like, you have to wait till the needle ends, like the record ends and the needle comes up and then you got to wait for it to drop the next record. So it's like old school record player. But him collecting music, I was really inspired just like of his expertise in different styles of music. But going forward, my cousin Ollie, shout out to Ollie.
Hey, Ollie.
he had this, it's crazy. He had this stereo, which was tape deck, a radio, and a record player all in one. And he figured out how to put the switch in the middle where you can hear on the left side the tape deck and on the right side the turntable. So we figured out, wow, you could actually play two things at one time. And that's pretty much how we started DJing. Like we were inspired by like what we heard on the radio, and we try to emulate whatever we did on that little GPX machine. That was pretty much my inspiration starting DJing. And I was able to do my first gig in the 7th grade. My older brother, E-Man, at the time, he had a DJ group. He's like 2 years older than me. So he was already a freshman in high school, and he was in a DJ crew, and he was able to go out and start his DJing career early since I was still a kid and I wasn't allowed after 10 p.m., I had to go to bed. But he was able to hire his friends for my school, and they let me actually DJ my first dance in the 7th grade. And that's what got me really popular with the kids. So I was like, everyone likes me. So I found a niche where it's like, okay, maybe I'll just DJ, each year for my school, and one, get paid $10, and then two, be popular. So I did that from 7th grade, 8th grade. I was able to DJ my prom in 8th grade. And then 9th grade came along. I was able to DJ the lunchtime dances at Poly with Teresa Scarabs. I was able to do the sweetheart dances.
Yeah. My sister Teresa, by the way, was like in this, was it like a high school like sorority type?
Yeah.
It was like a club.
Yeah, it was a cool sorority. They had all the hot girls, by the way. That's why.
That's why. Yes, that's why. For those listening who don't know what Scarabs is, but continue, V.
Oh man, yeah. Maybe you got to interview Teresa and have her talk about Scarabs, but yeah, like I was able to do that, and I also realized like, wow, it actually get paid to DJ and get into the event for free. So I was like, oh, I'm killing two birds with one stone, In high school, I was like thinking I was getting paid, just making these little bucks and becoming popular because I was able to sell these mixtapes to other students just to make like a simple tape for like $5, $10. And you could say like I was the go-to guy for music because everyone's like, yo, do you have this? You got that? And I was always up on it at the time before there was internet, before people can just find anything just like that. Like it's not as instant as it is now, but I was able to do that all the way through prom. That just turned into like when I realized after high school, I was like, okay, maybe DJing isn't for me because, as a typical Filipino family, they expect you to become in the medical field or, have a good career path. Because to them at the time, DJing isn't really something they would think is,
it's a like career.
Yeah, exactly. Like whoever thought at the time, like you could make X amount or this prior to that, because it really hasn't been done until like this was like probably in 94, right after I graduated. E-Man was able to get on Power 106. And I really like, wow, like there's actually an opportunity. From then on, I was able to practice the craft more, concentrate. I mean, I still went to school and everything, but because your parents always want you to have either, if you're going to do this, still have, a degree or have a plan B as a backup. I was able to still go to school, graduate with telecommunications management, just to make them proud, but still continue what I really wanted to do. So throughout 90s, going to school, and then I was able to get on Power 106. You were there. I used to take you to some of my gigs when you used to come visit, you and your mom. So yeah, I was able to do that and DJing on Power for a couple years. It opened up doors for me as able to see what's outside. I was able to meet people in the industry that started in the beginning, and then you see them like where they're at now. Like there's so many people I met that we all started our careers at the same time, and now they're just on another level, which I'm so happy for, to see what they're doing now. Even when it comes to artists, where artists come to you back in the days and asking for help, and you give them your advice and everything, and all of a sudden they're like on top of the world. You're at this point where you can't even get a hold of them yourself, but you could say you were there inspiring them in the beginning. Overall, like just this DJing path for like you say, I started in like mid 80s all the way till now. That's like over 20 something years, 25 years or so, just to do what I love to do. And with Power, I was able to go outside of radio, and I was able to see the world and travel with, like when I met Far East Movement at the time, they weren't anything, they were just a regular group looking for a DJ. needing help. They were backpacker DJs at the time, or underground rappers, you would say. And they never had experience on radio. So I was able to guide them and able to get their first song on the radio. And ever since then, that just took off for them. And, they realized so much what I gave to them that they officially made me a member 2 years right after I joined the group, like in 2008. And then after that, this history just took off, and I never looked back since. And I'm still with Far East. Now we started our own company, and we're all getting older. And now we want to find the next Far East movement, you would say, the next artist out there that be the next one, because there's so many talented people out there, and I love to help. That's why I'm here. Yeah.
Going back before Far East, did you realize that you had a natural talent that made you nicer than some of the other DJs to get yourself into a position where you excelled? Or was it just you grinded so hard, you were just in the basement cutting tracks or like scratching or whatever? Like, what put you above the other people that were coming up at the same time as you as a DJ?
Well, one thing I realized, which people remember me for back in the 90s, is I put out this mixtape. I realized for me, like, I always try to be like different, right? Like, I always like, okay, for you to stand out, you got to be creative. You got to take it differently. You got to take it to another level where people are like, you got to wow people. So what I did is I made a slow jam mixtape back in 94. It was hip hop beats mashed up with slow jams. You probably remember this, Victoria. Like, an example is I took Aladdin, A Whole New World, and mashed it up with Tone Loc, Wild Thing. Like, I was trying to do things that people don't do. And when I just released it, thinking like, okay, I'm just going to release it to my friends, I didn't think it would spread like wildfire to this day, that I still get emails from people I don't know asking for that mixtape. So I felt like one was my creativity and trying to be different helped me become who I am.
Knowing me at that time, I probably went really crazy for the Aladdin song, right?
Yes, you're happy.
At that time. So speaking of mixtapes and that whole culture of artfully like selecting what would be on the mixtape, can you share with us your process for putting together a mixtape? And then my follow-up question is, how was your process in hunting for that track, that new artist or that new track that you wanted to play?
So back in the 90s, you mean? Like,
yes.
How I did that? Okay.
In the 90s.
So what I would do is, because at the time, radio was just playing radio records. And the only way you can hear other things is, one, you would take risks. You say you go to the record store, right? So you go, you talk to the shop owner and be like, hey, let me see your top 10 records right now. Let me see what's hot in the streets. The first thing is you always got to go what's hot in the streets, because sometimes if you don't have the ear, other people have the ear. And that's why that's the key. I always say to this day, it's the key. Like right now, like the young teens, like the big, TikTokers, whoever, they all have the ear, right? So for what I did back in the days was I would always ask people, what are you listening to? What are you feeling? What's on your playlist, or what are you trying to listen to besides the radio stuff, or what artist do you like? And that's how I first heard of Snoop Dogg. Before Snoop was even getting played on the radio, I heard of Snoop. He was actually at Poly rapping during lunchtime, and you would hear him like, okay, like he's the one going to these record stores and just passing out their tapes, selling their music over there. So you always want to be the first. So what I did was, you always want to be the only guy that has it. So for you to stand out, you want to be the go-to guy. Like, he's the first. Go to him. He has it. So what I would do to inspire or keep people like wanting my tape is, one is, yes, I would try to be the first to play something new and something different, but still cater or add a little of the radio or the familiar records. So, they don't just get bored. And because I know people to this day still want to hear their favorite song as well. And at the time for radio, you had to wait long. So, you had to wait like an hour or so just to hear your favorite record. So when I had the mixtape, when I was able to add 2 or 3 of their favorite records or hottest records on radio, they can go back, rewind it, and listen to it at any time. So that's why I would add that as well. But that's how I would like try to put a mixtape together, like just have it all like one. I would keep it in order where I would set the BPM where it takes them like on a roller coaster ride, right? So I would try to set it where it starts off slow and then the speed picks up. And then once it take them to the peak, then take them back down. So that's how I'd always try to make my mix, because you don't want to burn them out so fast in the beginning. That's how I would always program it. And for me to find records as well, like just music, just keep digging. And or I would ask my friends as well, because they do the same thing I do, is like, yo, let me borrow this, let me borrow that. Or we would switch, or what DJs would do at the time is just trade notes in that circle. It's like just to stay relevant in that time of music.
Awesome. So what I love about what you said is that you really took your listener on a musical journey, like a musical experience. And that's something not every DJ does anymore from my observation, because I feel like immediately it's playing, and John talked about this in his podcast, kind of like just playing the hits, but not really taking them on that programming journey. And, just going back to that, it shows the level of thought that you really put into your craft and the whole experience of it as a body of work, which it's really nice to hear that it's not just about selecting what's popular. What I also loved is what you did where you added your own creativity into the mix too. Like that was your thumbprint. So in terms of, for example, you working as a DJ, you said you had many stories in Power 106. So tell us your story of first, how you got in. Obviously, we know E-Man is part of it, but how did you join the station? And if you have stories around that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So it's funny because even though E-Man's my brother and my boss, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't that easy to get on Power 106. What I love about E-Man is he doesn't play favoritism. He keeps it real, regardless of we're blood brothers. He kept it very professional. But that's what helped me become a better DJ. Like I didn't want it to be given to me on a golden platter. Like it's like, I don't want the easy way in. I got to work for it at least. So what I did was, yeah, exactly. You got to earn it. Some people nowadays, like it's like who you know, but even though you once you get into that circle, you want to prove to everyone why you're in there. You can't just be there and you got to walk the walk as well, besides talk the talk. So in the beginning, I actually had to apply. I had to actually audition. I had to audition from the bottom. So I had to start on the street team. I wasn't even on the air yet. So we were making minimum wage, which was about $4.25 at the time. Very, very I didn't even care. I was willing to do it for free, but I had to audition, I had to try out. And once I was able to get my foot in the door, that's all you needed. That's all I realized. Like once you get your foot in the door, now that's when you can prove yourself to the world or to who you're trying to impress. So once I got my foot in the door, I just started passing out mixtapes still, just showing my craft. I remember I would give it to Mr. Chalk, the Baker Boys, all the people on air at the time, just so they know okay. So they would put an ear in E-Man hey, your brother's actually pretty good. I didn't want I wanted them to let E-Man know to give me a shot because he's hearing it from other people. So that's what I did. I was on the street team for about 2 years till I was able to get my first chance on radio when E-Man said, yeah, I heard a lot of good things about you. A lot of people like your mixtape, what you did. So we're going to give you a shot. I remember it was my first time. It was 4 a.m. in the morning,
Yeah.
Early morning, just give me a chance. And for some reason, I didn't think E-Man was going to listen, but he actually did. And he was actually impressed to what I did. And actually other people gave him feedback. So I think that was a tryout for me. But for me, I just thought it was nothing. I was thinking oh, it's just 4 a.m. No one's listening. But I didn't realize people are really listening. That's how I got my foot in the door. And then now being on the street team, you meet a lot of people. For example, I remember I was DJing at the Lauryn Hill concert. It was back in '99 on the street team.
Can you explain a little bit too what it means to be on the street team for those that may not know what that means?
Sorry
exactly
about that. Yeah.
No,
so
okay.
On the Power 106 street team, it's pretty much they have a team that goes on the street to promote Power 106 in the streets. Besides being on radio through the airwaves, they would send us out. They had different crews or different teams that would go out to certain events and host, just set up a whole tent, set up a sound system for a couple of hours and DJ events just to promote Power 106. So I would go to different events. I would do Orange County Fair to different concerts, just to promote the radio station to the people outside that still aren't familiar to Power 106. Because even though there's millions of people listening, there are some people that still don't even know what Power 106 is. at the time because there was no social media. There was no other way to get out there besides street team and radio. I was doing that, which was they considered that the early stages. Like if you're a rookie, that's where you start technically. Like a lot of the DJs that became on air mixers as well started on the street team. But that's your way to work your way in. So that's what the street team's about. But for example, we were able to promote concert like the Lauryn Hill concert. I was able to do that. We were DJing outside, promoting Power 106 and everything. And then this guy comes up to me. He comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, can I DJ too?" And I was like, at the time, I didn't know who he was. I was like, "Sure, he seems like a nice guy." He was cool. And I was like, "He looks Filipino. I'll let him DJ." So he started DJing and everything. And then I was like, "All right, cool." And then he came up to me and he was just like, "Yo, man, it's my first time here I'm from Virginia. I've never been to LA before. Let's hang out sometime." And he gave me his number, right? And then on the paper it said Chad Hugo. And I said,
Ooh.
and he goes, "Yeah." And then he said, "Oh yeah, by the way, do you have that record Mace Looking at Me?" And he goes, "That's me right there. That's me. I produced that. I'm from the Neptunes." And I said, "Oh, okay, cool." But see, me at the time, like, how do you know if he's really telling the truth? I have no proof. Like, I was like, he could probably make this up. I was like, really? That's really him? I don't know if that's really him. I messed up. I should have called, but I never did. And then the rest was history. They took off. They became, the Neptunes. They became NERD. And, I wish that was a relationship I kept. And that's one thing everyone needs to learn is always keep your relationships, regardless of who they are. Now it's like you can do background check with Instagram and see if they're verified and everything. But for me, I wish I did that. But I did tell him because we did a track together for this Manny Pacquiao movie a couple years ago. We were just laughing about it. But, it's just like, damn, man, like you want to be there like in the beginning. Like, it's like, dang. So that's what made me realize like never, ever keep your network open and strong, regardless of like what they are. Like try to help everyone. That's one thing I learned. I was so young at the time thinking like, oh, I'm on Power. I don't need this. I don't need that. It happened again to me. Like, dude, I could tell you 3 stories. I mean,
all right, tell us another one.
No, here's another.
Was his DJ set nice? Was it
at the time it
was like,
it was cool, right? Yeah, it was like still like for me, I was like, I was like, oh, it's all right. But I mean, it was good, but it's just like, oh, I just want to be me. I don't know if this is really him. Is this really him? I don't know. That was like my one thing, like, because people always come up and say, oh, I mean, this happened before. Like someone came up to me and said, "Yo, I'm E-Man's cousin." They didn't know I was E-Man's brother, but they're like, "Yo, can you get me in the club? I'm E-Man's cousin." And I was like, "Who the hell are you?" But they didn't realize I'm E-Man's brother. People, you try to use the card to get in or access. How do you know who's who nowadays since then? So that's one thing I realized. Like even in the beginning stages, you may not think like musically, like maybe it's not your style or what. Like you got to have an open ear. You can't listen for yourself. And this is where this other story ties into. So I remember we're at the Power Mixer meeting. This label brings in this artist and they play this record. And I was like, all right, cool. But in my mind and other people's, I noticed, I thought it was super cheesy. At the time, it was like, I was like, oh, this is cheesy. Like, who would play this stuff? After he played it, I could see everyone's faces. Like, we were just talking to each other, just ignoring him. He's just standing in the back, like with the label. And then he was just standing there. And I was like, man. And I realized, like, man, everyone just ignored him and didn't even really talk to him. And that record was Country Grammar.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, and I realized, like, that record just took off. And that was one thing. It's like, oh my gosh, like, imagine if you just kept that relationship. What if you stayed in touch? And who knows? Oh man, like you realize, like, man, that's like 2. That's strike 2 for me. And then here's my strike 3, the worst of the worst. So we went to dinner one day. This was with a label. They took out some of the mixers, and we were just all vibing out. And then they bring in this artist, and this artist just comes on a little strong, like, yo, what up? Yo, check this out. While we're talking, like in the middle, he'll pull up his arm, show his tattoos. He goes, yo, these are all the hits I made, man. I'm going to be the next artist, the number 1, look out for me. And I was like, all right, cool, man. Like he was just a little aggressive, right? He was just a little aggressive, a little too strong. And it's just like, yo, take my number down, whatever y'all need. I want to hang out with y'all and everything. And everyone took his number, but I just didn't call back. I'm so stupid. And
can we make guesses? You got to guess?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is probably the worst of the worst. Like, I wish I never, I wish I stayed on top of this. But yeah, please do so.
Vicky, you want to do it first? You want to guess?
Kanye?
You're right.
Oh my God!
Was that yours too, Brett?
No, I was gonna say Drake, but
Oh.
No, because
Yeah.
I always hear interviews of Kanye doing that from other people, right? So when you said that, I just don't know if he had tattoos, but the attitude sounded familiar. So I'm like, But
Yeah.
crazy. Back to you, V. So what we're really learning from your stories is that keep every relationship or don't assume,
Yep.
right? Keep an open mind because you just never know where life will take
Exactly.
anyone, right?
I realized, like, after I learned that experience, I said, all right, I'm just going to help every artist that wants to help, that needs help or advice. Like, I'm not going to shut them out regardless of their music, because, that's their talent. I can't judge. I realize I can't just judge anybody. You have to have an open mind and give it a shot. And that's how Far East Movement came along. This goes back in what, couple years after that, after I met Kanye and everything. And then 2006 comes along. The manager at the time, like, we wanted to throw E-Man. It was Rosario and John. They
Yes.
wanted to throw E-Man a party. So at the time, they found a promoter to throw E-Man's birthday. So the promoter comes back to me and says, hey, I could throw E-Man's party, but I just need a favor. I manage these artists that need a DJ. I said, all right, cool. Who are they? And he goes, oh yeah, they're an Asian group, Asian hip hop group. I was like, what? I didn't know there's a such thing as an Asian hip hop group. I didn't know, there's a scene like that. So he goes, yeah, like, they just need a DJ. If you could just do this gig, I'll help throw the event, but just do me this one favor and DJ for them for this one event. So I was like, all right, cool. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, I'll help. Since they're helping me, I'll help back. I was thinking, okay, it's probably going to be one and done and then move forward. So, but I told him, I said, all right, before anything, I want to meet them. I want to meet the guys, make sure they're humble, they're cool. We're on the same page. I don't want to help someone that's just like too diva-ish or just too much, right? So when I met them, very humble guys, very cool. Funny thing is, they were telling me like they weren't sure how it would work because, see, for them, me being on Power 106, it was a very, you would say, majority of the listeners were Latino. So they were wondering, like, how's this going to work if he's Latino? They didn't know I was Filipino at the time, but they're like, how's it going to work if he's Latino and he's going to join Far East Movement? So we both had this interpretation of like, all right, maybe just a one and done thing. So, but when I met them, they were cool and they were tripping out too that I was Filipino. So that worked out. But on the first rehearsal, that's where they caught my attention because they totally reminded me of the Beastie Boys. And I'm a big fan of the Beastie Boys. And when I saw the way they were, I was like, oh, wow, they actually have potential. Even though they didn't have radio records or the music didn't work for what they're trying to do, that's where I was like, okay, I gotta give it a shot. So what we did was what me and E-Man did at the time, we're like, okay, you guys got to take it to the next level. You want to be on radio? Like, yes, you guys are underground, you guys doing the rap scene, but you got to become more in the world of radio if that's what you want to do. So you got to give me a radio record. So they were able to give me like a folder of beats, and I was able to pick one. This one could actually work. So I sent it to E-Man. E-Man was like, yo, at the time, Latin hip hop was huge. So especially in LA. So we're like, hey, let's get Lil Rob and Baby Bash on this record. So we were able to get them on this record with Far East, and it was called You Got a Friend. And that record just gave them a whole new audience. They were able to do car shows. They were able to get in the community outside of the Asian scene and the hip hop world. And I think from there, that's where our relationship blossomed. But the hard part for that was when I was trying to shop them to different record labels at the time, like the always main concern that these A&Rs would tell me is they don't know how to brand Asians. They don't know how to market Asians. And that was a question I was like, man, dude, let the music speak for itself. But that was something I couldn't get over the hump. So, I was able to do it with radio play and get these labels interested because they were seeing the spins before there was like YouTube, Spotify, all that. They were able to see they were able to look on this thing called BDS and see like, wow, Far East Movement is getting 100 spins in LA. That was something I was able to open the doors and get Far East Movement looked at.
Nice.
That's why to this day, like, yeah, even now, that's why I was telling you guys, like, I want to help. I don't care who it is, what it is, like, I just want to help. Even if it's a little advice, even if it's little something I can do or direct them to, or even connect them with, I'll just be happy just to do that.
Okay. Who in your life do you feel has really impacted you in terms of the advice or help you've received?
Oh man, definitely E-Man. Just watching how E-Man would, the way he handles himself or carries himself, like to this day, a lot of people know that. Like your lifetime in radio is usually about 10 years, 10 to 15 years max. He's gone, he's past 25. And that's one thing stands out with E-Man is one, like I said, he's always keeps it real and he's always honest. And that's one thing I realized, like, okay, I want to be like that because to this day, his impact to so many artists and so many people, it's just like a snowball effect. You know, you see the respect he gets from these artists that he becomes good friends with. To this day, they thank him for his career. To this day, even for me, like even though like he's my brother, we still thank him to this day for what he's done for us. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Talking about like Asians being able to penetrate the international scene, you guys obviously were able to do that with Far East Movement, and then just sort of recently, I don't know how many years back, but like the K-pop scene just sort of blew up. What do you think the next step is for Asians making it more on the international scene?
I think now it's like it's an open market. Everybody now, not just here, everybody, everyone's a global artist. There are so many platforms out there. It could reach everybody around the world. What I always tell people is always put out content, always put out music. Keep your brand going. I mean, for me, like I always tell people, don't be a follower, right? Like just don't follow how everyone else is because you'll just get lost in the shuffle. You know, you'd be like, oh, you sound like everyone else. Like if you want to sound like everyone else, you know, maybe add a little spice to it, right? Like it's like if someone wants to eat a pizza and they love to go to this restaurant, but you don't want to make the same pizza, they could just go to this already. So, you know, you want to add a little flavor, add a little something to it, but still keep your brand and always like stay on top of the content. Like, cause I realize now kids, social media, you can make a hit. All it takes is 1 minute and you have a hit. You don't need more than like 3 minutes, 5 minutes nowadays. So all it does is take one.
Tell us about your journey as an artist when you were with Far East Movement, like how it was making songs, touring, and that lifestyle.
Yeah, no, definitely. So back to the, you know, once they got their first single on radio, I was able to start doing clubs with them or just around the area, like LA, because they were big in LA and just in the West Coast. They were able to do these songs, but for them, what we did to make them stand out again is they're like, and they, you know, they love energy. So in their set, we would put together or like, we'd like, yo, let's get creative with this. Let's put like a up tempo electro hop, you would call it, you know, beats. And you guys just freestyle over that, you know, cause it hasn't really been done besides early 2007. Like it was at the time, it was like Latino rap. And then there wasn't really any electro, you would call it dance rap at the time before like Flow Rider, like pretty much the other ones doing it was LMFAO, but that was still early. Like it wasn't even, I don't think that song was even out yet when they were doing these freestyle raps. So I would go in, look for different beats like Daft Punk, Welcome to Detroit, like all these like electro beats that aren't too housey or very dancey, but still has that bass kind of hip hop-ish vibe, but still keep it in the realm of their set. So they would like we noticed like that's the thing that would wow people, you know, like wow, these guys are like their energy is like on another level. So even though no one recognizes them, we want people to at least remember the set. So besides me just DJing, yeah, I could just DJ and play the hits. But once that, like, you know, to keep these people, their attention span towards us, it's like, all right, let's just wow them. You know, do an intro, do your crazy like 130 BPM rap to wow people, then drop your radio record, and then that's it. And that's how we would do for a while and just keep going. And then the second time, once they had started that electro rap style, they were able to follow the trend. Like, yo, Ver, like, what's another song we could do just to get the crowd? Because at the time, you know, Power 106 still is a big Latin market. We have a big Latino market. So I said, yo, when I DJ on Fridays, the noon show, they always ask for The Cure. You should sample The Cure. So they were able to sample that record, and it was called Lowriding that they played. And that record did so well that we performed it one time at a basketball game for Power 106. You know, we would do these celebrity basketball games that Power would throw. They would invite other artists, like up and coming artists. And that's when Wiz Khalifa saw us. And, you know, he wasn't nobody at the time. He was still like up and coming. And he saw that song, or he heard them perform. It's like, yo, I love that record. And he just jumped on it. And there was a remix out there that featuring Wiz Khalifa at the time, because we all, you know, we're all starting together. And then that record did really well for Power. So we realized we found a lane. We found this up-tempo electro hop, you know, lane for the guys. So we're like, okay, let's start meeting with other producers. And then this was what, 2007 now? Kev, he used to intern at Kev Nish. He's also from Far East Movement. He used to intern with this guy named John Yip. John Yip, he's from the Stereotypes. He was like, yo, man, like, I think I have a record for you. I think I have this record. We're working with this kid we found on MySpace. His name is Bruno Mars. And he wrote this record called Girls on the Dance Floor. He just wrote the hook. And he goes, but I think it's dope for you guys. So, you know, they sent me the track. And I was like, yo, this record is fire, dude. Like, fits what you guys are doing. It's like the lane we got to go to. You guys got to rap on it. So they were able to like put their verses on it. And I was like, yo, give it to me. I was able to Power 106 again. You know, that was our platform at the time before anything else. I was able to give it to E-Man first. That reaction, like when E-Man played it, what do you call it? Started adding in a rotation and all the other mixers started getting on the record. Like the reaction of it was crazy because one, the energy, two, it's never like, it hasn't been done like that style besides, what was it that was blowing up? Pitbull and LMFAO. So it was just perfect timing. And then that record just took Far East Movement more, you would say, besides the West Coast. Like they were able to go more towards, you know, Midwest to the East Coast. Like that record started getting played in other radio stations in other states that they even never been to. So that opened doors for us being on radio. At the time, you know, Bruno, he was just writing records. I have a story about that too. So, but yeah, so that's how
Let's
we had
hear
our fun. Oh, I'll tell you, it's a crazy story. So it was 2008. We were able to start touring, doing city shows, going state to state. People are actually flying us now to do shows, and the guys are actually seeing like, okay, this is something they could a lane that we could do. So Girls on a Dance Floor as well. Then 2009 comes along. Before we get signed, there was a A&R on Interscope at the time. His name was Martin Kirzenbaum. Prior to that, he signed LaRue, Ellie Goulding, Lady Gaga. He broke Lady Gaga early, like the first Lady Gaga album. Like he had number ones, and he saw what we were doing. He was so interested that he took a chance. He goes, hey, I want to take you guys on the road. I just signed this group, LMFAO. So he took us on tour with LMFAO for the first time. And we realized like, okay, dude, this is crazy. Like there's an electro scene. We were doing college shows, like you could say like the younger crowd at the time. And we realized, okay, like this can actually work. So for us to promote, we were doing mixtapes still, like CDs. We were passing out CDs. And I remember prior to that, there was a song that the guys did in 2009. You know, they're like, hey, we need more songs of ours, you know, for this mixtape. We can't just have it a mixtape and there's no Far East Movement songs. Here's a record we did. Can you just add it on? I said, let me hear it. You know, they go, it's not really done yet, but it just has just the beat and a few rap. And they played it for me and it was like a G6. And I said, yo, hold up, bro. Like this record is fire, dude. Like, are you sure you want to just release it like that? And they're like, you know, like, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like, you know, we just need something. And, you know, it's okay. Like to them, they thought it was okay. They didn't think it was a hit or anything. But for me, for some reason, when I first heard the beat and I heard the hook, like that's what caught me. You know, I was like, dude, that's like the formula, dude. There's a hook, there's a beat, like, dude, it's the one. But at the time, they're like, they didn't believe me. So they just said, please put it on the mixtape. So I put it on the mixtape. We did the tour 2009. So we did the tour, released it, just let it go, right? Didn't even think about it after that. So 2010 comes along and then we're just doing regular shows, like nothing really hit. And then we do this college show in San Diego and they're like, yo, can you guys, you know, the promoter who booked us it was actually a frat party. a daytime pool party, right? And we're like, cool, we'll just do it. Thinking it's just a typical set that we do, like a 20-minute set. So when we get there, they're like, yo, can you guys do a 30-minute set? And we're like, fuck, we need to find 2 records. Like, we never done a 30-minute set. So we're all trying to go through everything. And I was like, yo, all you guys have is like a G6, And I was like, this is all you have. This can give you another like 4 minutes extra to add to your set. And they're like, all right, just add it. Just play it as like the 3rd song, thinking like, oh, it's nothing. Just like it's just a throwaway just to add to the set. All right, they're performing, cool. 3rd song, I throw in G6. All of a sudden, everyone goes crazy. Like everyone is singing it. Everyone's like going nuts. And we're like, and we froze. Like literally, there's a video out there. You can see it. I don't know where it is. I got to find it, but it's on YouTube. But we literally froze and looked at each other while performing like, what's going on here? What the heck? Like, how do they know this record? That song was probably the craziest song of the whole set. After the set was over, we went to a promoter. We're like, hey, what do you call it? Like, why were everyone singing this record, singing our record like a G6? And he's like, oh, you don't know? He goes, dude, that your song right now is the college anthem right now. Someone got it from a mixtape and just passed it along and just sent it out to all the colleges and frats. And I was like, what? So they got that song from that mixtape I put out for the LMFAO tour.
Like a year ago.
Yeah, that like year. So it's like, wow, like we didn't know that was going to become something. And then I was like, when they saw, I was like, see, I told you, man, there's something there. And then that's when I was like, yo, I brought it to radio. I told E-Man, listen to this. And then E-Man's like, yo, this record's pretty dope. Like it's catchy. And that's how it started. Interscope saw that. They signed us like, yo, like this record is taking off. But this was like the same time. So here, check this out. This was probably February 2010, like the same time, February, March, right? Same time where G6, we noticed G6 was taking off. So, once we got signed, we had to work on an album. We went into studio with the Stereotypes and Bruno was there. Bruno helped. He wrote like 5-6 songs on our first album. So Bruno comes along and he goes, hey, Ver, can I talk to you for a second? I was like, yeah, cool. So he pulls me outside. He goes, hey, I need some advice. I was like, yeah, what's up? He goes, dude, man, like, how do I get radio records like you guys? I see you guys are getting all these plays, all these spins and everything, right? And if you can look prior to that, Bruno used to bring us out on his show because, we were the hottest like radio song at the time. He would ask us to do a special guest on his set. When he heard Girls on the Dance Floor and he was saying like, man, that's getting hit, even though he wrote it, he's like, yo, how can I be part of something? Like, how can I get radio plays? He asked for advice. So I said, oh man, dude, let me call E. I said, let me call my brother, dude. He can give the best advice, because I can give you the one, but to hear it from the source here. So I called E. I said, hey, E, you got to come to the studio. I said, dude, there's this kid. He's super talented. He's writing on our album. He's written for other artists, but he's about to become a solo artist soon. But he needs advice. But dude, I think the best advice would be from you. I said, just trust me on this, man. He's the next. So E-Man comes down. I introduced him, E-Man, Bruno, and then he was asking like, hey, what advice can you give me? One, as a radio programmer, music director of Power 106, how can I get music played on the radio? And what E-Man told him was like, you know what it's about? He goes, it's about the hook. And he goes, you know why they call it a hook? Because it has to hook people in. When you have a hook and something's catchy or even a phrase, he goes, you want people to remember it regardless of like, because they're going to want it more. So for example, at the time, like he was telling us like when 50 Cent had In the Club, people didn't know what was in the club. People would just say, yo, what's that song? It's your birthday. It's your birthday. So that was very memorable. So he goes, you got to make a memorable song in your hook or in your melodies or something, to catch people's attention. So Bruno was like, all right, cool. He's like, all right, I'm going to have something for you. He goes, give me about a month and a half. I was like, all right, cool. A month passes up. He emails me this record. He's like, I think I have it. He emails me. I hear it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is fire. Like, this is the one. I sent it to E. I said, hey, E, you got to play it. Be the first to break Bruno. Bruno knows this. Power 106 is the first station ever to break Bruno. But see, that's because of me, because I sent it to E-Man. So E-Man played it. That record took off. But it was, at the time, it was B.O.B., Nothing on You. So that record got Bruno on the map.
Game over after that, right?
Yeah, game over. He started getting recognized like crazy. So the funny thing is, it became a competition between Bruno and us. And it was just, friendly competition, because we would call each other on iTunes. Like, we'll pass each other here and there. Like, Like we'll be number 7, he's number 8. We'll be like, oh, look who took over. And then a couple of days later, he's number 5, and he passes us up and he's like, this and that. Like, we would just call just making fun of each other. But we were still in studio working together, making this album. So if you could see, we got Bruno Mars on Twitter. He's never heard of Twitter. We actually got him his first Twitter account. So if you go to Bruno Mars's first tweet ever, it says in studio with Far East Movement. That's proof right there that was his first tweet. And we were just writing records. And I was like, man, this guy is killing it, dude. Like he wrote Rocketeer. He wrote a lot of records. And I was like, dude, like, because if you look back in the first album with Far East Movement, they do have a record with Bruno, but that was when either Far East or Bruno or anybody. After that, that was history, man. And we realized, like, once we started doing shows, G6 was taking off. We saw it going up on Billboard, and it was something like, it was so surreal. Like, you just can't believe, like, this record just keeps going up and up and up. And then I think we were in Canada at the time. We were doing a tour, and that's when we found out. We didn't know we went number 1, but when we walked into our hotel room, there was this big bottle of champagne, like probably like 4 feet tall. And it just said, congratulations, you went number 1. I was like, yo, this is crazy. And then after that, the rest is history. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's no lie that your music has really crossed cultures. It really became a global, an international brand. And it's also something that we here in the Philippines, when we saw that happening. And so those years that you mentioned, those were years that I was on radio. Yes. Remember those days. And it was around 2009, and I was playing those songs that you mentioned. And what I like about what you said is you always went back to the feeling of when you first heard something, and you just knew. You just heard it. You felt that energy, and you just called it. You called it before the whole world called it. And there's something about people like that who can see what's invisible and call things before the world catches on, and just has that feeling and pulse for the culture. So we are all about that in terms of believing your instincts. Yes, and that's also what we believe in. Yeah.
I agree. It's always about, honestly, like for me, it's always about gut feeling. Even though, like, to you, like, that's what I'm saying, like, you have an open platform now to the world. It's going to affect people's lives. Like, there's some way, somehow, people are going to love your music. It may not be where you want it, but dude, someone will be affected by it. So all it is, I always tell people, it just takes one. It just takes one.
Yeah.
And you can just build from there.
And also, it might not happen right away, because you just put that song Like a G6 on a mixtape a year before, right?
Yeah.
And it took 12 months of marination. And then later on, you see that without you knowing, it was passed around. And then suddenly it became this anthem for colleges. So sometimes you just have to put it out there and just let it go, right?
Yeah.
Let the universe do its job.
No, exactly. I mean, that was one thing for, even at the time, speaking of Bieber, I remember that was his first single. Like, radio wasn't really supporting it at the time, but the label just kept pushing it and pushing it. And finally, it breaks through. It took, I think, 8-9 months, but it finally worked. And that's why sometimes, like, I think that's what is also key in this music industry, is about patience. Just because something doesn't work overnight or doesn't work doesn't mean to give up on it. That's what I'm saying. Like, you got to keep something, like, let it become organic. Let it marinate with people's ears. Let it grow. Like, some people, like, it takes them longer to feel a record. Like, it happens to that a lot of people. There are times where, like, you naturally hear something even though you don't like it, but then you realize later down the line you keep hearing it, and then you end up liking a record. So it's very similar to that.
Awesome. So I want to just go back to one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and it was what some of the A&R executives told you, that they don't know how to market Asians in the culture. And we're going to talk about the subject of race in terms of how was it for you being an Asian American music group coming up into the scene?
That was the funny thing. So what we had to do was the music speak for itself, right? Because music is a universal language. There's no race, there's no color lines, there's nothing. Music is music. So that's what we realized when the guys had songs that were music that people love. They didn't know what race they were or anything. But when they see them, they're like, oh, I didn't know you're Asian, but I love you guys. I love your music. So we knew like, let the music speak to them. Like, oh yeah, they want to have like labels or other artists like, oh, they want a game plan. They want to stick to the old school formula or they don't want to stray away. But nowadays it's, yeah, for what I realized, it's I'll let the music speak for itself. There's so many talented artists out there, regardless of like what race they are. It's like today's world is anyone can make music, anybody, any race. You could go any Spotify playlist or anything and find a top 50 song in other countries and you're like, whoa, these records are dope. You could find that now. So I feel like nowadays it's easier to brand certain people or even just certain music regardless of that because the numbers speak for itself. I think now it's more about a numbers game in this world today.
Nice. So tell us, where is Far East Movement now? I know you guys are doing new things. You started a new company. There's a whole new chapter in line. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, definitely. So one, Far East Movement now, we're all older. Some of us now, we got married, have kids. We're fathers now. We kind of took a step back from performing because it takes a lot out of your body just being on the road. And we realized like, yeah, nothing lasts forever, but you can still continue it with other people and share other people's like dreams and you can help other people. So we started this company called Transparent Arts. It's like a label management company where we have a few artists that we manage. That's why, like, you know, we have Tiffany, who's from Girls' Generation. She's one of the biggest K-pop girl groups of all time. But, you know, a lot of people don't know she grew up in Diamond Bar in California. So what we did is like, okay, she wants to come home. Let's bring her home. We helped her release a US album. And even though she still like does music overseas or in Korea and everywhere else, we wanted to make her global as well. And, you know, we're doing that with our other artists. Like we have a producer, DJ by the name of Yotron, who's big in the EDM world. He's Chinese American. He's able to now go out and DJ in his home country, in China, or headline EDC, headline Lollapalooza. He's able to do all these big things. That's why you realize, like, okay, it's not about the race. Like, people can do these things.
It's kind of cool because it goes back to your intention of helping people and helping artists and all the advice you gave artists during your career. So I think that's kind of cool. It's integrated now.
Yeah.
It's kind of gone full circle a little bit, right? Because like when you're younger, sometimes you got an ego. So like as you get a little bit older, you check the ego and you just want to help people build them up and like learn from your mistakes and your experience.
Definitely. Like that's the first thing nowadays is like, it's funny when I do meet people and then they do have an ego, like I try to kind of give them the story. So they'll kind of like realize like, okay, maybe let the ego tone down a bit. Like I'll try to keep it cool as possible and help them. You know, I'll get emails. I'll get like people hitting me up on LinkedIn to DMs, everything. Like it's crazy because people have more access now to get a hold of me compared to before. It was just an email. It was just MySpace or at the time AOL email, or that was it, or instant message, or people try to find me. But now it's like, it's endless. You can find me on anywhere. So that's why you can find so much good music out there, regardless of where it's from or who's done it, everything. I want to just share my knowledge and experience to these artists because I feel like I didn't have that growing up. I'm blessed to have that. I was able to be on radio and learn from my mistakes. I'm not sure if Far East Movement, like if I never met them, who knows where. I'm not saying like I helped the career, but it's just like I was able to put my input. Even with Bruno, I was able to connect E-Man and Bruno. I was able to get his first single, give it to E-Man. I don't know, like how else can that happen? And I want to be like that with everybody now. That's how I was like, oh, and it makes me feel proud. Like I want to be like 80 or 90 years old and tell more stories to like my kids, then my kids' kids, and their kids' kids' kids.
Oh, yeah.
So what kind of advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh man, to my younger
your
self.
Hungry younger self, you know, with the big ego, trying to break it, trying to make it, hasn't made it yet.
I would tell them like, what are you doing, man? Like, dude, you had it in your hand. You had so many opportunities. First, I would tell them like, yo, you got to stay humble. Just because you may think you made it, you got to realize just because you're here doesn't mean there are 100 other people trying to do the same thing, learning, trying to, you know, become better, practice their craft. Like you can't just take a step back and relax and think, oh, I'm good. I don't need this. I don't need that. I realize like nowadays, like it's like one day I could just be like, oh, I'm just going to relax. But then there's like 500 other people learning something new. You know, it's like, oh, I should just keep going. That was one thing I realized. Like, I want to keep going and keep learning, because I feel like today I still am learning something new. That's why when I went to the Philippines, what was it, 2 years ago or end of 2008, Vicky, when I last saw you? I wanted
18, yeah.
Yeah, 2018. Yeah. So I wanted to learn, I realized I want to learn the Filipino scene, the Philippines, like I don't know anything about it, but I want to learn. I want to be there. I want to reach out. I want someone to be like, hey, Virman, like, what's the advice you can give? Or like, I don't want to be that guy that can't, be reachable, because I'm here to help. But that's what I would tell myself is keep your network open, stay humble, keep your faith in God, and just keep going and let it build. Have patience. Patience is the key, because I used to think like, whatever, and then just keep moving on to the next.
So you said to get people's attention, you have to have a good hook. But after all the collaborations, albums and songs, in your opinion, what makes good music other than the hook?
I think nowadays it's just, for good music, it's like everyone has an open mind now. Everyone has, it's just, I say, because it could be good to someone else, even though it's not good to you, it may be good to somebody else. I think you should always go with your gut feeling, man. If if it's something you love, or if it's something you feel like you made from your heart, that's a good record. That's a definitely good record. This is something you poured your heart and soul to. It's just like I realized, like with mixtapes, right? Like starting way back in the days, I put my heart and soul to it. To me, I thought it was good. To other people, it may not be. But then I realized to other people, it was good. You can't judge other people's, like, that's another thing. When you see comments or don't take it the wrong way. Not everyone's going to like your music. Not everyone's going to like you as well as your brand. Just stay focused and just keep working at it. That's the best I could say.
Awesome. And that's all the time we have today for our podcast. V, thank you so much for being our guest here on Theoretically Speaking. Any last words? Anything else you want to plug or let the people know?
No, honestly, thank you guys so much. I'm so honored to be on this podcast. I seen the amazing people you guys had, like when you send me links, and I listened to it while I jog. And it's something where, that's what I'm saying. Like, I learn. It's like knowledge. It's like to gain knowledge and see what other people are doing out there, because I don't get to hear these amazing stories of what other people are going through. And just to hear that and see the grind and see the hustle and see the pain that they go through. It's like, one, you realize you're not the only one going through it. And two, maybe you can lend a helping hand as well, or give that person advice. But no, thank you guys so much for having me on this.
And thank you for being here, and thank you for your time. And we're really proud of you. And
yeah, thank you.
Keep up the good work, and sending love to you and your family.
Likewise to you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you also. Thank you for the time, everything you shared with us. I appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of people will learn from everything that you spoke about.
I hope so. So, feel free. I mean, you can find me anywhere. So just hit me up. If you guys have anything you want to ask or talk about, I'm here.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our season finale guest for season 2, the one and only DJ Virman. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode, and you know the drill. Share it with a friend and follow us on social media. But before we close this out, Brent, this is our last episode for the season.
I know, I can't believe it. We talked about it and we manifested it, and this is it. So I really hope everyone enjoyed it. We enjoyed the whole process. It was a lot of learning, but I think it's equipped us to maybe do season 2.
Maybe. No, we will. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. As you guys know, or didn't know, we recorded this episode 100% on Zoom, and we were all working from home. And not just that, for majority of the season, in fact, all of it till very recently, Brent was in another time zone. He was actually in Canada. So it was very interesting in terms of setting up schedules, getting the team together, researching, writing, designing the cover art for our team, everything, the whole process, including editing, the actual podcast. It's been such an amazing learning journey for us, and we only hope to be better in season 2. My biggest lessons when it comes to this process or the interview process was just be brave and do it, even if it's not perfect. Because the fact that you did it shows that you have courage, and we just wanted to put ourselves out there. And we're really happy that despite what life threw at us in terms of us having to work from home and Brent being stuck in another country, we just decided to still make things happen no matter what. So guys, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, courage is the key.
That goes back to exactly what one of our guests, Amanda, said. It's just like, if someone asks you if you can do it, just say yes. Also, one of the biggest things that I learned here is the best parts of the podcast sort of just happened organically. It was those little moments in between that, went beyond the scripted questions. It was the interaction, being able to reach out to friends that during the period, well, it's still the period of the COVID pandemic, but we were able to grow our relationships with our friends who happened to also be our guests. And that was probably the funnest part, just getting to catch up with our friends and with ourselves as well.
Yeah, everyone from Raul to Mong to Gabe and just everyone we mentioned here in season 1. So a lot of it was, yes, we wanted to learn from them and share that with our audience. But what we also wanted to share was that sometimes after the podcast would come out, we'd get messages from our actual guests saying, hey, I needed that conversation too, right? That was something that helped them reflect on their journey and help them also realize how much they've grown in life. So we hope that anyone listening to this also felt that and those lessons resonated with them, because it comes from a real place, right? Everything in this podcast came from a real place. So proud of our team. I'm so proud of the Next Theory team. So thank you everyone for that feedback, the good, the bad, and the constructive. It helps us learn and see how we can improve.
I'd like to also just say thank you to all the guests again, because they're so supportive of the podcast from the get-go. It wasn't like really hard to ask them to come on the show, and they didn't know what they were getting into, but I think they liked it. So them liking it encourages us to keep going. Thank you for your time as well, for anyone that's tuned in. We just want to get better. We want to share what we've learned, and we want to document history the way that we've experienced it.
That's right, Brent. We will be on a break now that season 1 is done. It's a wrap. Guys, we will be coming out with a season 2 that's in development, and maybe this time around you will see our faces. So,
and if we hit you up, we hope you can also, we have a lot of people that we have in store for you guys with guests. So you might be getting a call soon. And yeah, let's have a talk.
And let's have some fun.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. So that's it for season 1. Thank you again. My name is Victoria Herrera.
And I am, of course, Brent Javier.
And don't forget to follow us at Next Theory, at Victoria_Herrera, and at Brent Javier. This is us signing off. Shit, what is it again? You get it. Whatever. Bye.
Peace.